It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Mac OS Ken Ray is here to join Andy Ihnatko and talk about all the rumors coming out. And that's just kind of this time of year for rumors. And we'll explain why I have balloons coming out of my head. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 275, recorded November 29th, 2011. Steve Jobs, The Opera. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by GoToMeeting. The holidays, bad weather, and sick days can keep you out of the office, but not from getting work done. For your free 30-day trial, visit GoToMeeting.com and use the offer code MacBreak. And by Ford, featuring available sync with My Ford Touch. Sync with My Ford Touch gets you to your destination with integrated turn-by-turn directions and directional arrows displayed on screen. Check it out in the new 2012 Ford Focus and at Ford.com/technology. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show that covers Apple and sometimes Macintosh. Not so much Macintosh anymore. I don't know if Macintosh has long to live. Joining us now, Alex Lindsay's off today, but Andy Ihnatko is here from the Chicago Sun-Times and the Celestial Waste of Bandwidth. Hey, Andy.
Congratulations on another successful trip around the sun.
Yes, thank you. It's my birthday today.
Oh, well, I didn't want to say happy birthday.
I know, because I'm not happy.
You don't celebrate that, but another trip around. Very few people, manage a full trip around the sun.
55 of them.
You got a free ride, so let's not give you the full credit. But
the cabbie is so far very generous. I haven't been asked for anything.
Still, tip your God gratefully.
I shall. At the end of the ride.
18% gratuity is right. He will include an 18% gratuity at the end of the ride.
I'm going to give him a carrot cake. How about that? Also joining us from Mac OS Ken, it is Mac OS Ken Ray. Good to see you, Ken.
Good to see you, Leo. Hey.
Yeah, happy. What do you, we've talked with the panel a lot about the end of Macintosh and what we're going to call this show. Macworld Expo's changed its name to iWorld.
Well, they've added iWorld, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we can call this iBreak Weekly. I think that sounds pretty awful, almost painful. So
sounds like something happens in a Jet Li movie. Yeah.
Yeah, iBreak Weekly.
Then I go back together. Go back out there to complete my mission.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just feel like that, between the iOSification of Mac OS X Lion, and really Apple just doing so well with iOS that you just wonder how much, and the iPad especially, how much interest they have in Macintosh.
Well, I mean, you've got rumors this week.
There are some Mac rumors, yeah.
Yeah, about the 15-inch thing with the 15-inch MacBook Air. So, I mean, it's still kicking. As long as somebody I read said, as long as they keep spending money on, both the MacBook Pro and the MacBook Air, they'll keep both alive. So obviously, the Mac's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, well, the Mac Pro might be though, and that's what a number of times we've talked about that on the show, that the Mac Pro might be in fact doomed.
And also the Mac's desktops are not the Mac desktops and notebooks. It's not like they're loss leaders. I mean, they are actually contributing to the bottom line.
Right.
And also, there's just like the sort of psychological effect that even if Apple decided to say no, we don't like making that much extra money per year off of a product line that's extremely successful. Do you think that even internally at Apple, they could be happy being just a mobile computing company?
Well, you got to figure that at least half of the company would just plots. If they were, I mean, they came there to, sure.
Nothing of the cavelling.
They cavelled, they plots, they meshuggah. They came there, didn't they, to make Macintoshes. That's really where this all began for a lot of them. Maybe with the Apple II, but I think the Macintosh is really when Apple, took off. I don't know. So the rumor is there'll be a 15-inch Air, and I know that that's true because I just bought a 13-inch Air. That was my birthday present to myself. I had the old, the 2010 11-inch, and I thought I'd first, it was Jason Snell last week, Andy, that did it to me. He had the Air. I don't know if it was 11 or 13, but he said, "Oh, it's so much faster. The i5, and oh, it's so much faster." And I go, "All right. I guess
that's absolutely true." But I'm trying to navigate the question of, are we going to break the MacBook Air concept by making it into a big MacBook Air?
Right.
Because I still think that the sweet spot is still the 11-inch. This thing you can just tuck in the magazine pocket of pretty much anything you're carrying. I do have like weird geek pants in which you can fit a MacBook Air into the back pocket. I know that not everybody wears pants that are tailored for shoplifting, but still, that's quite an achievement.
I just got a Scott E-Vest vest that has a pouch for the Air.
I think we're going to find out that like most Mac people are going to start like shopping at like military and police equipment stores.
So they can carry their Air.
The ceramic plate that is actually designed to stop bullets, like that's built into a vest or a shirt, tactical shirt, is probably about the right size for 11-inch Air.
Yeah,
but the thing is, like, how much more convenient is it going to be to have still that same 15-inch form factor? You're still huge, now it's just thin, and it's maybe a few pounds lighter. Now, I'll still have to carry that big bag. I'll still have a little bit of trouble getting through airports. Like, it'll still be the sort of thing where they're going to probably ask you to take it out of the bag. Whereas with these smaller Airs, I think they even say that, no, it's a simple enough device with a simple enough shadow that they can allow you to put it on the belt. So I'm really curious to see how well that works out. But so I guess the three of us are agreed that we can elevate this from air quote rumor to solid rumor.
I think it's pretty clear this is such a success. The Air is, 28% of their overall Mac sales? Seems pretty...
I was looking at that figure, and I was kind of questioning it because a lot of people are looking at that figure and comparing it to decline in netbook sales on the Windows side, and I don't think they're really the same sort of situation at all. Apple didn't decide to create this sort of edge case machine called the MacBook Air. They put it front and center, and they said that if you want the default choice for a MacBook is now designed to be the MacBook Air, either the 13 or the 11-inch, and you have to be a special sort of person in order to want the MacBook Pro now. So I think that most consumers are just listening to what Apple is saying, and also trying to get out of there with the most amount of spending the least amount of money to get a Mac, and that solution is the MacBook Air.
There's a couple of things to... Go ahead.
Go back a second on a couple of things. First of all, I don't think the use case, and forgive me, I'm not a road warrior, but I don't think the use case for the MacBook Air is the fact that it's that small thing, because you do also have the 13-inch, and that does fold right into...
I kind of interested to see a 13. I mean, that's why I ordered the 13. I love the 11, but I thought a little more screen real estate might be nice.
Right.
But I think what's great about what it seems to me what's going to be great about pitching the 15-inch MacBook Air is the fact that it is thinner, it is lighter, and of course it's going to be the SSD, right? It's not going to be relying on hard drive, so it's going to push forward what they're trying to do that way. Even
not just lack of hard drive, lack of optical drive. And you know, Apple's been great on this in terms of being way or somewhat ahead of the curve. They dropped floppy disks. They were the first to do it. They were right. They dropped FireWire. Well, that was a unilateral move. They adopted Thunderbolt, and I now think that dropping the optical drive makes sense, not just on the Air, not just on the ultralights, but on all these machines. The ultra-mobile PCs have optical drives, though, don't they? So that's kind of... No, they don't.
Well, Intel is promoting this new thing they're calling the Ultrabook, which is really as close to a MacBook Air as you can get.
They're duplicates, which test them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have side-by-side pictures for an upcoming review of the Asus first Ultrabook, and man, it would have been so easy and so tempting a couple of weeks ago to just say when Apple finally needed to get their 11-inch Air back that was on loan for a few months, to say, what if I were to forget and just give them the Asus the Windows 7 one back, and because it really could fit the same shipping stuff.
Oh, I thought it was the same.
I'm sure they'd catch on. I'm sure they'd be very upset, and I wouldn't want to do that. But it was tempting anyway.
Walt Mossberg will say, "What is this? Apple sent me a Windows machine."
It's like those stories you see every Christmas where somebody buys an iPhone from Walmart and they get it home and it's a can of sardines. You know?
Well, no, you can use sardines to make a really good puttanesca sauce. I'm not sure what I would do with an Intel Ultrabook. But the other cool thing though about the 15-inch is that it's enough real estate just physically to stick in more batteries. So maybe we could look forward to having our first 10-hour MacBook. I think the previous record was 8.5 hours for one of the earlier
I think this 13 inch. The other reason to get a 13 inch is because I think it's almost 8. It's almost, is it 6 hours?
I think it's. I think that's rated 8, right? Yeah. I think, but the 15 I would happily give up another half a pound. Yeah, I mean, if I could get an iPad like battery life, where not just not only getting through an entire day, but flaunting the fact that I can get through a whole day, not even having to think about how much time is left on the clock, and even maybe not have to suffer if I forget to recharge it overnight.
I love that. I love that.
Can I go back to one other thing really quickly? I had a question for something you said, Andy. You said that people are trying to draw a correlation between the slowdown in netbook sales with the rise in the sales of the MacBook Air. I thought that was more a correlation between the rise of the iPad.
I think the iPad has a lot to do with it.
Netbook.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people who are trying to say that the Air is stealing purchases away from the netbooks. I'm also saying that a lot of analysts are saying that, well, the Ultrabooks are going to also doom the netbook. I just don't think it's quite comparable. But there are other factors that get scored with a kill, and the iPad is certainly one of them. When they're talking about like sales of these devices being so brisk, they were talking about sales figures that are on the Intel side, on the Windows side, that are pretty much like 1/4 to 1/5 across the board with 3 or 4 different manufacturers, just one fraction of what the iPad sales are. And it's so bad that there's a rumor going around that Samsung is going to be leaving netbooks completely.
Oh, man.
That's interesting development.
They actually make the best netbook, but that's not saying much since they're pretty much crap.
Did you see the survey the other day? I can't remember who it was. I apologize. I think it might have been NPD, but the survey that was about how tablets are doing besides the iPad?
No. I'm sure not well. I'm sure they're a fraction of iPad sales.
That was the thing. It was kind of amazing to me because they went and they parsed out like how everybody else was doing in tablets. And of course, we don't have the Amazon Kindle Fire to compare it to yet because, well, we don't have numbers for them. And even when we get numbers, we won't have real numbers from Amazon.
Yeah, but they do say it's the best selling. I mean, they say it's flying out the door. They had quadruple sales on Thanksgiving Day. I mean, they're doing all right.
Does that bother anybody besides me?
That they lie?
Well, I'm not saying they lie, but
just
I mean,
don't give
every year
numbers.
they say, things are going great. Well, how great? Well, great.
Well, I think Amazon has said they're still being cryptic, but I think they still have said millions, which is significant given that it's only been out for a couple of weeks now. I don't know if there's. I have to double check this check on the quote. I don't know if they're saying I'm not sure exactly where the number comes from, but where Amazon's concerned. Normally, they would sell directly to the customer. That would be a more significant number, but they're also selling through Best Buy. They're also selling through regular brick-and-mortar retailers. So it could be just shipped to stores as opposed to sell-through.
There's no question in my mind that the Fire is first of all, the first decent Android tablet.
Yeah.
And is absolutely going to sell millions before the end of the year. They said they were making 5 million, or somebody said they're making 5 million, and I think that's not an unreasonable number. At which point, all of those NPD numbers are meaningless, Ken, because they don't include the tablet, the competing tablet.
I just found it funny actually that they spent all this time, and I want to say they raked in. I want to say it was like since the first of the year, they said that shipments had soared to I can't remember how much, but it doesn't count as soaring when you compare even the weakest quarter this year of the iPad.
Right.
And then I think they said that they had taken in something like $412 million in retail. For all of the tablets besides the iPad. And so you go through and you're reading this thing and you're like, wow, well, this tablet's doing really well. And then you realize because we're not comparing it to the tablet, as you say. So it was kind of funny.
It's
really,
doing well for something that's not an iPad.
There's that guy who finished the marathon an hour ago, and now here are all the other guys. Well,
but also,
we should stand around and clap for them anyway.
Yeah, they're the 3 hours later. Yeah,
it's like the Boston Marathon, and like all the people who finished the Boston Marathon in like 2 hours 30 minutes. It's like, oh, you stink. The winner came back 20 minutes ago. Loser. You can only run 26.2 miles in 2.5 hours.
That sounds like such a Boston thing. It really does.
No. We're kind,
I'm trying to get to work here.
They're wicked mean.
We're Puritan fishing colony. We just want religious freedom.
It's Puritans. That's it.
And to fish and to make rope. That's
you
all.
barely made it. So I do think the Fire is going to I know I'm the only one on this panel. In fact, I think I'm the only one in the entire twit. No, you like it? I think the Kindle Fire is awesome.
I reviewed it. I liked it.
Yeah, I did too.
As a matter of fact, I just wrote a Macworld column that basically a toned down version of my reaction to a lot of the Mac communities and the iOS community's reaction to the Kindle, which is that, for God's sakes, grow up and realize that, okay, you know what? Amazon did not build a clone of the iPad for $199. They wisely, unlike Motorola, unlike HTC, unlike Samsung, said, you know what? Apple's doing a really good job selling something exactly like the iPad for $499. Why don't we try to make something that we can sell for $199? Because $199, a lot. I benchmarked this myself, is a great number less than $499.
We have the numbers, and it's less.
I'll give you a PDF of the independent testing company.
Would you? I'd like to see a graph. That would be a good graph.
Show me how
500,
much
200.
Good. No, I to my dismay, I have not yet seen a Kindle Fire.
Let me say this.
I'm curious to see how it's going to go. I don't think.
Let me say this. I think the Fire. Some people might say the Fire is to the iPad what a netbook is to an Air, and I don't agree. I think it is not the netbook of tablets. We've seen the netbook of tablets. It was called the Playbook. It was called the Zoom. It was called the Touchpad. I think this stands on its own as an excellent device. I don't have the laggy issues other people have reported. I think there are some QC issues with the first shipment, but I think it's fantastic, and I like the form factor. I think it's a great tablet.
Let me ask you a question. Forgive me.
Okay, Andy, and then you can. Hold on.
Okay. I would go with the netbook comparison only in the sense that the way that I tend to explain it to people is that Apple did not make a version of the netbook when they built the iPad. They looked at the reasons why people are buying these things and try to figure out, we don't have to build something exactly like this, but this is giving us some pointers into what people want. They want something that's very, very small in length. They want something with infinite battery life. They don't need to run everything they would on a desktop, but they want to have a certain practical subset of those features. And so Apple said, how can we rearticulate that into something that's actually good instead of just a chopped down notebook? I don't know if Amazon did this literally, but the Fire looks like the exact same approach with the iPad, saying that let's start off with the idea that we need to build this for $199. What are the features that people are compelled towards for the iPad? If we can, what can we really focus on to make the best $199 product that we can? And the answer came back: content consumption. Simple that people want to certain like iPad-like features like email and word processing, but they don't have to really use it as a notebook replacement. So long as they can do something as complicated as receive a Word file as an email attachment, read that file, make some notes on it, and send that file back to the person who sent it to them, that's pretty much as notebooky as you can get. And I do think that it's a really good $109 tablet. It's not a cut down anything. I think it's a very good for what it is.
Ken?
Well, there's the research firm Canalys said earlier this year that next year, after the iPad 3, Apple will be the #1 computer seller in the world because they're going to go ahead and count iPads as PCs,
as they should.
Okay. So you think that's fair? Then let me follow up with: do you do that with the Fire?
That's an interesting thing.
Yes on that one.
Well, here's why I would argue no, Andy. The Fire is really very much a consumption device. I thought the iPad was very much a content consumption device. They've proven me wrong in that respect. The Fire definitely is. I mean, you could type on it, and you can put Evernote on it, and you could use it to enter data. But I think you probably wouldn't. It's really a consumption device, and I think that might be the dividing line between PC and appliance or CE device.
So who's going to decide that?
Well, not me, obviously. I don't know why anybody should decide it. It's that horse race mentality the media has. We've got to put these in categories, and this is winning. And there's tablets, there's desktops, there's laptops, there's phones. Those are all different devices as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like when you get so passionate about a movie that you have to know how much it made in the box office this week, and did it beat the Smurfs or didn't it beat the Smurfs? It's all I care about is that I got my iPad. I love it. Also, that it's selling well enough that Apple has faith in it, and it's not going to go away in the next couple of years.
That's what matters. Right.
Yeah. The rest of that is just, I'll be polite since this isn't this podcast doesn't get the explicit tag. This is just flag waving. We're all getting out our flags and waving our flags, and that's not a productive way to spend your afternoon.
It is something though that Apple fans like to do quite a bit of.
Well, I mean,
we're weird.
It goes back to the question that you asked at the beginning, Leo, though, about does Apple ever get out of the Macs? Which I assume you were being partly facetious, at least. But I mean, it does kind of go to that question. if they stopped making the Mac one day, but they were still making the iPad, and they were making bigger iPads, is Apple still in computers at that point? And again, you're right. Who cares?
They took computer out of their name, I think, for a good reason. This is. I mean, it's all bets are off now that Steve's gone. Frankly, I think that the company direction could change considerably. I don't. I mean, this is all. Had Steve been still running the company, I think he would have dumped the desktops. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm with Andy.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like a commercial airline deciding that we're American Airlines. Bad example is they just declared bankruptcy, but saying that no, we're just going to ship cargo from now on. So long as there's
it's the other way around. It's the other way around. It's saying we're not going to ship cargo. We're just going to ship passengers. We're going to go where the money is.
Well, what I'm saying is that an Apple computer that doesn't make desktops or doesn't make machines that run desktop operating systems is a lesser company. Also, you're throwing away 10 years worth of development on an operating system that's still exceptionally powerful. And if you drop Mac OS, what happens? Those people, are they going to open source Mac OS? Or is there going to be a remaining a community of people who are still going to be using Mac computers and Mac OS? No, they're going to switch to Windows. Are they going to continue to go with an operating system that doesn't support iCloud as well as anything else, doesn't support as iTunes as well as Mac OS did? No, they might. There's an opportunity for other media companies like, I don't know, Amazon to step up and fill in that gap. I just don't see any reality in which Apple would stop making desktops, barring the sort of asteroid impact that would make our interest in consumer devices largely moot. Yeah. So let's hold off that optimism that there might be something that destroys all mammalian life on Earth. But barring that, I think the desktops are here to stay.
No, I think I'm between the two. I think it's way too early to talk about killing the desktop, and I think if Steve Jobs were still running the company, they wouldn't be killing the desktop anytime soon, but I think it'll happen.
Well,
not today, not tomorrow, but a few years from now.
The only real question is, well, then how do you develop for iPads if you don't have desktops? I mean, but that's such a small market. Maybe they'll make Mac Pros for people who, I think actually I think you're right. It's the Air and the iPad. They'll keep the Air around. I just don't think they're going to make big desktop machines anymore.
Maybe. I could see that happening. So that I could see them killing desktops easier than I could see them killing Mac OS itself.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Although Mac OS looks more and more like iOS Lion is halfway to iOS.
Well, is that a bad thing?
I'm just pointing out the trend. I think it's a bad thing, but I can always use Linux. I'm just pointing out the trend.
I've had a chance now to use a Windows 8 development tablet, and that's a really nice concept. The idea of a unified tablet that can run pretty much anything. If Microsoft really prosecutes this well and implements it well, that could be a really interesting wake-up call for how a modern operating system should be done. The idea that you shouldn't just have this two separate devices for two separate sort of profiles. I still think that it's sort of clumsy that when I travel, oftentimes I'm traveling with my MacBook Pro and my iPad instead of one or the other. So,
well, I used to use the Air all the time. So, although I'm sitting in front of a MacBook right now, but that's going to be replaced because it's too damn heavy. Let's take a break. We are talking with Ken, OS Ken, Mac OS Ken. You'd have to change your name. You'd have to be.
No, I wouldn't. People have been asking me for years, what do you do when they go to 11?
I've had Ray.
However many years in, right?
Ray Ken. Anyway, he is from MacOSKen.com. No, he'll keep it. He'll keep it. And he's at MacOSKen on Twitter. And Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times. And there was a female voice that just emerged. And I realized that some of you may not know that is Eileen Rivera, who is the producer of the show, is running the show right now.
Hello, everybody. On
the control board. She's what we call the technical director. And is the host of All About Android, which is...
They won't care about that on the show.
She's a spy for Google.
Hey, I still have an iPhone 4.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. Look at that.
I still have one.
What are you,
play around
slumming?
with apps.
Yeah. Did you see this? We're going to take a break, but before we do, I just wanted to... Did you see something? The chat room was pointing this out. Kickstarter project called The Landing Zone, a docking station for the MacBook Air. $200. They're only halfway to their goal, but they've got a month to go. I don't know if I like the idea of a docking station for a MacBook Air. That just seems silly.
Also, you already have a bunch of different really cool desktop just stands for a MacBook Air. You plug in one FireWire port, you got pretty much everything you want.
Well, and Thunderbolt, I want to see.
So this is a bunch of ports too.
This doesn't have Thunderbolt, and that's the problem. And I think what we really want to see.
It's all USB 2.
Yeah, it is.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. This is the future. I want to see a Thunderbolt dock of some kind. Just something I just plug in there and everything happens magically. Yeah. I do love the way the Mac 7-inch monitor, hooks up to the laptop with the power supply, a USB connector, and a monitor, Thunderbolt, or actually DisplayPort, I guess. I don't know. I guess it'd be Thunderbolt going forward. Is it Thunderbolt now?
The Thunderbolt display is that sort of thing, just integrated into a really cool cinema display where you plug it even if you plug it into an 11-inch Air through the Thunderbolt port, you get USB, you get FireWire, USB, you get gigabit Ethernet, you get everything.
Does it power it? No, it doesn't power it. So you still need a power cord.
I have to rethink that. I'm not sure if it gets.
Wouldn't that be cool?
I think it needs its own power.
Yeah, it probably does.
But essentially, you get one connection to your MacBook Air, and you have all these ports and an external display.
That's awesome.
And that's why I don't think it's likely that Apple will ever stop doing the iMac, but I think that at least gives them the possibility of saying, instead of creating a $2,000 iMac and a $900 Air, we can just simply get rid of the iMac itself and find a way to build this for $799 and say, well, this is your iMac now. Just dock it.
Right. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Super awesome.
Super.
Oh, my God.
It's super. We're going to take a break. Come back with more with Andy, Ken, me, and you, as we talk about Apple and the Macintosh and the little iOS and some rumors, too, coming. But first, GoToMeeting. My good friends at GoToMeeting have really solved a lot of my meeting issues, because we're a distributed company. We have 20 people here in Petaluma, but probably 100 people everywhere else, all over the place. And not to mention all our partners and people we work with. I'll tell you, it's hard to get people together for a meeting unless you use something like GoToMeeting. And now with the holidays coming, GoToMeeting is really a lifesaver. People are going to be, traveling and so forth, but you need to have an impromptu meeting. You can't get them in the room. You use GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting.com. Try it right now. It works not only on a Mac or Windows to hold the meeting, but you can attend a meeting on Mac, Windows, iPad, iPhone now, and Android phones. We'll just pretend that doesn't happen. Android phones. At the same time, you can attend meetings on any device. That means, boy, no matter where you are, you can look at this, and by the way, you can't do video from the phone or the iPad yet. I'm sure that it's coming, but you can also send video from the desktop, which with this HD Faces technology, it is fantastic. I want you to visit GoToMeeting.com right now and try it free. All you need is the offer code MacBreak, MacBreak, and you can try it free for 30 days. The iPad app is free. The iPhone app is free. Now you can head out, attend meetings. You can hold meetings with a distributed staff with salespeople everywhere. You can even say to people, hey, it's the holidays, take some time off, but we're going to have that meeting anyway on Wednesday. I like that. Go to meeting.com, use the offer code MacBreak, and you can try it free for 30 days. A really great deal, and great people, too, making a fantastic product. So it's a Hail Mary pass for AT&T. They're losing it's the bottom of the ninth. No, I'm mixing sports now. It's the last minute of the fourth quarter, and they're down 28-0. The FCC, Julian Janikowski, the chairman of the FCC, said we're going to send this to an administrative hearing, which I'm told is FCC talk for not going to happen. Department of Justice investigating. So the AT&T folks this happened last week, pull their FCC applications. We don't want to be told no just yet. They're restructuring the deal. I think they hope to restructure the deal to get it through the Department of Justice, even though they're going to take that $4 billion charge, the $3 billion cancellation fee that goes to T-Mobile's owner, Deutsche Telekom, plus $1 billion in spectrum, which will go to T-Mobile. It turns out AT&T's making this deal solely for the spectrum. So they're talking about ways to salvage the transaction, including going to a company called Leap Wireless. Now, some of you may have heard their ads. They're like one of these small, a second-tier wireless player. They want to sell it T-Mobile's customer accounts. Oh, that's great. I'm so happy they're going to move me over to Leap Wireless. And a little bit of the spectrum, then they'll keep the rest of the spectrum. The idea being maybe this will appease the Department of Justice. If we can get by them, maybe we can. It's kind of like when you're playing Skyrim and you got to sneak by the dwarf with the big axe, but then there's a dwarf with an even bigger axe at the end of the hall, and you're hoping you can get around him. It's not going well for AT&T. That's why they took the charge. First of all, I'm shocked that the U.S. government has actually stepped in on this, even though it's obvious they should have. Do you think there's any hope for AT&T, Ken?
Do I think that
saving this deal?
I don't know.
Who knows?
I mean, it seems to me if you already have the DOJ looking into it and saying that they don't really like it, and the FCC saying they don't really like it, whatever AT&T is going to come back with is only going to be just enough to try to get it by.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's hard to imagine that, you know, Randall Stevenson and the other guys at AT&T are going to go back and say, you know, they're right. What's going to be best for everybody? I mean, they're really only going to give as much as they. I'm sorry, this is horrible to say. I'm sure they're wonderful people.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
They're just going to go and like give just the tiniest bit that they can to squeak this by. So if it goes by,
Right.
Yeah, it seems hard to believe. At the same time, it's supposed to be bad news for T-Mobile, right? Except they get the $4 billion or the $3 billion and the spectrum. I mean, whatever they get. I mean, maybe this is a shot in the arm for T-Mobile. My biggest hope, honestly, I used to be with T-Mobile and I loved T-Mobile. I'd love it if they got an iPhone. Everybody said, the second Verizon gets an iPhone, I'm going to switch. I had no interest in going to Verizon. If T-Mobile got an iPhone, I'd think about going back because they were always great as far as customer service goes.
Some are saying this whole deal was to weaken T-Mobile, to keep them from getting the iPhone, to keep them from winning new customers, just to weaken them. It was like they were casting a spell of weakened stamina to AT&T, hoping to kind of beat them.
I don't know, $4 billion
That's a lot
just
of
to
money.
weaken your competition.
I know.
mean, that's
just.
They're also trying to just. I'm sorry. This is coming from Andrew Ross Sorkin, writing in Dealbook for the New York Times. He said, actually, the deal, they were advised by their lawyers that there was only a 60 to 70% chance of success. But the risk of losing the deal, according to one participant in an AT&T board meeting, a banker advised the company the risk of losing the deal and paying the $4 billion breakup fee was worth taking because it would probably distract Sprint and make T-Mobile a lesser competitor. So even if they lose, which they thought they probably wouldn't, but they knew there was a fairly significant risk they would, they gain by weakening their two competitors.
Yeah. I think I'm probably in the same position as Ken here, where my personal lack of business acumen on the scale of this sort of deal prevents me from really understanding it. To me, man, if you my hats off to the owners of T-Mobile saying, okay, if this deal doesn't go through, you still owe us a check for $4 billion, and if
you got to understand, in this world, billions are nothing.
I'll take half a billion. I'll take half of that nothing.
Billion here, billion there. It starts to add up.
but yeah, I mean, I really wish I understood the further dynamics of this deal. Where if you can afford to write a check for $4 billion just to sort of distract competitors and make sure that you don't competitors don't get to add T-Mobile to their own stallions, and that T-Mobile can't really grow to take any market share away from AT&T. Wow, that's a big check to write, and that instantly makes me take a step back and wonder exactly what's really going on here. I talked to one friend who has some knowledge of some of these matters, and he says that he believed at the time that this deal was announced that the only reason why they agreed to the $4 billion kiss-off is that they were that sure that this would go through, or that if there were any problems up ahead, they could find a way around them. So I'm just a spectator with this, just like a lot of people.
I love Robert Bigelow's comment in our chat room. Hey, what about simply providing decent service at reasonable rates to weaken the competition? Never work. It never works. Commie.
Next, he'll be telling McDonald's to just do high quality food, fresh and sourced from local ingredients, and sold at a reasonable price.
That sounds like Five Guys burgers and fries.
Ah!
I love them.
Oh God, I hate that. I hate them. Oh God,
you don't like Five Guys? You have Five Guys?
We have Five Guys all over the
I
East
didn't know
Coast.
that.
I ate there once. I'll do the 30-second version of this. It's just that it's an okay burger. It's more fries than medicinally any one human can possibly process in a week. But the big problem is that every Five Guys I've ever been to, and I've only is lit by constant strobe lighting, powerful lights.
You don't want to go there at
all
3
the walls
in the
are
morning.
white. They're also like white tile, so that every night, like after the soccer team or the baseball team, Little League comes in there, it's screaming kids reverberating from all sides. And I'm like, oh, and I volunteered to be in here. There's a Chipotle like right across the street where they have that lovely music, a lovely burrito for $7.40. I can take half of it home, unlimited drink refills. Why am I here?
They're trying to drive you out. That's why. They don't want you to stay at Five Guys. They want you to get your burger and go. Same reason Denny's is like orange and brown or something, because they don't want it to look good. They want you to move.
I've explained that guy behind the counter who was like had a rubber band and paper clips were firing into my neck as I tried to eat.
Here.
I didn't understand it. Again, I don't have that sort of business acumen on how to keep the table turnover going.
You know though, after reading Roger Ebert's, I mentioned this last week, Roger Ebert's book, I do want to go to Steak and Shake.
Yeah, when I was in Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago, I did a Google search like, is there a Steak and Shake anywhere near Milwaukee? And I went from like being ecstatic to finding, yes, there is one. I could go to the Steak and Shake, to finding out that, oh no, it closed a year ago. Oh, now I'm sad. But there's a Chipotle just across the street from my hotel.
I do like Chipotle, so that's all right.
Very
I got to say, this is an easy conversation for Leo to have because he's within driving distance of an In-N-Out burger.
That's true.
When I
And
moved
Five
across
Guys.
the country, every place I actually drove my stuff across the country, and every time I saw an In-N-Out burger, I stopped because I thought this is going to be the last one. And it turned out the last one was someplace in Arizona. But then seriously, like my favorite part of the year is January when I go to Macworld, and my favorite part of going to Macworld is I go down to Pier 39 or
so
Fisherman's
funny.
Wharf and go to In-N-Out burger.
I tried to get my son to go to In-N-Out last night for dinner, and he wouldn't. I thought, oh, this is bad news. He's finally OD'd on In-N-Out. Apple nipping Target's heels for the okay. Apple, does this ever happen to Dan Benjamin on 5 by 5? Apple nipping at Target's heels for the 4th most visited site on Black Friday. The only individual product brand to reach the top ranks among the big box retailers. That's how big Black Friday was for Apple. Target, Best Buy, Walmart, and Amazon, then Apple. That's pretty good.
That's crazy.
Good for them.
They're just selling stuff like crazy.
Yeah,
Well, how much stuff
convenience.
did they sell there, though? Was it just visits or was it actually
It's just
sales? Because a lot of
visits.
people, yeah, because then a lot of those.
Wait a
people
minute,
at the
wait a
top
minute,
went
wait a
to
minute.
Amazon.
According to a report from 9 to 5 Mac, Apple's Black Friday sales were off the charts. Apple blew away forecasts by 7 p.m. and broke records for their biggest sales day ever.
Well, that's a different thing, though. That's not just the online.
That's the
visiting.
stores.
That's also right. That's everything.
That's also a big deal because they weren't selling $2 waffle makers. They were giving you what is kind of like a measly 5 to 10% discount off of really expensive stuff. So I guess when you're used to never paying 1 penny below full manufacturer's list price on an Apple hardware, the ability to save $50 on an iPad is probably or $75 on a MacBook Air is a bigger deal than it would be at Walmart.
Apple's not notorious for big discounts during Black Friday, but they did roughly 10%, right?
5 to 10% depending on the product. Yeah.
That's bigger than usual.
It's still crazy. And then all the surveys that are coming out right now that I think there was one from Piper Jaffray that just came out yesterday that the top 3 things that kids, teenagers in the U.S. want are cash, clothes, and then Apple gear. In the U.K., kids want Apple gear. Here, I think it's the U.S. and the U.K. combined. It's it's top of everybody's list.
What a brand.
You're definitely going to go to Apple, first, whether you end up doing your buying there or not. They've also done the whole thing now where they're offering free shipping in the States for anything that you buy through their site, which is kind of cool. Although you're still probably, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you're probably
they're competing with Amazon.
going to Amazon.
75, according to Apple Insider, 75% of Apple stores sold out of the 4S on Black Friday. iPad sales were up 68%. Actually, this is from Deutsche Bank. Chris Whitmore had its analysts check 200 stores on Black Friday to assess the bid for Apple products. 100 Apple retail stores and 100 AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, Best Buy, Walmart, and Target stores. 75% of the stores, the Apple retail stores they polled, were out of iPhone 4Ss on Black Friday. Apple had restocked by Saturday, however.
Not all of them, a lot of them. I think 45 of the 75.
Right.
Which
AT&T stores, half of them were sold out over the weekend. Piper Jaffray's Gene Munster, who does the same thing, said that iPad sales per hour were 68% higher than they were a year ago. They believe that Apple will have sold 13.5 million iPads in the fourth quarter, the December quarter.
Which is not much above what Wall Street's expecting. The general consensus is only 13 million.
Oh.
Well, okay.
It kind of dwarfs the 4 to 5 million that Kindle Fire might sell.
Yeah.
It does, but the Kindle Fire, I mean, we talked about that already. I mean, that they're able to sell that many pretty much sight unseen is kind of stunning.
And to support, yeah, that's true. And to support Andy's contention that the Mac is alive and kicking, Mac sales, an average of 10.1 Macs an hour, up 23% from last year. They project 5.2 million Macs sold in the holiday quarter. So, I mean, that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I'd take it. They like the Air. The entry-level 11-inch Air was aided by a 10% discount, the most popular option in the lineup. As for the iPad, retail employees indicated consumers tended to be gravitating towards higher capacity models. They're not selling the cheapo. They're the most popular model of 32 gigabyte. I wonder about 3G versus Wi-Fi, however.
I want to say that article indicated that it was the 3G, the 32 gigabyte 3G, which surprised
People
me.
are spending.
Well, not as much as they would spend on a computer, though, which goes back to the whole, is it netbook or what's getting hurt by the iPad?
Right.
I'd love to see data on the difference between sell-through on through the Apple stores versus other retailers, because I don't even mean this as a joke. When you walk into the Apple store, you're not walking out there spending less than a few $100. Whereas I wonder if the Walmart consumers or the Best Buy consumers are the ones who are coming in and saying $550 for this. I don't think so. Let's see what this Kindle Fire can do.
I don't know though. Have you seen the new Best Buy ad? The new Best Buy that's all about the fact that they have Apple stuff.
Yeah, they really want to be an Apple vendor.
Yeah. It's not even just that they want to be that. That's how they're pitching themselves this Christmas. So Best Buy, where you go for your televisions and your refrigerators and any kind of smartphone you want to. All of those Android devices that Eileen loves so much. All of a sudden, their ad, it's not their whole ad campaign, but they've got this ad that is centered entirely around the fact that they've got, the iPhone, the iPad, the iPod Touch.
I'd sure hate to be competing against the Apple Store, though. That retail experience is mind-boggling. The only thing bad about the Apple Store is it's always crowded. It's
True.
always full of people.
I got to say, too, granted, I live in, I guess, what you would kindly refer to as the second-tier city in Buffalo. I'm kind of wondering who is keeping an eye on Apple retail at this point, though. Because I don't want to complain about the store. The staff is, generally speaking, pretty good. It's looking a little knackered, as the Brits might say.
They have
looking a little down.
Did you see this app that they have, the Spot the Shopper technology? This is from the Brian Chen writing in the New York Times Bits blog. It's an application only available internally that runs on touches. They show the in-store location of the shoppers who have come to pick up something. I guess what happens is you use the Apple Store app yourself as the buyee or buyer.
Yeah,
the buyer. And then the app will show you, and you can go.
Yeah, they're not tracking you, but if you any device that you might be in front of and in the Apple Store, you can basically say, "Hi, I need to talk to somebody," and then it knows that you're on just like a casino where Robert De Niro is saying, you need to electroshot this cheater at Blackjack 3 third base." They know exactly which seat to go to talk to you. But they're doing a much better job on crowd control. I was amazed a month or two ago when I finally had the back cover of my iPhone 4, which had a crack in it, finally got that replaced. And I'm used to waiting to go to the actual Genius bar, sitting in front of the bar and waiting my turn. really, as soon as I came in, I was approached by concierge number 1, who sort of checked me in.
Right.
Got to the area of the Genius Bar, was checked in by concierge number 2. I was sitting at one of those little workstations, just assuming that I'd be waiting my turn. But no, someone came from the back to approach me because they knew that this person has a very simple problem that can be fixed in about 15 minutes. Let's dispatch a guy out there right now to basically, instead of him tying up one of the conversational units at the Genius Bar, we'll just do we'll hand this over to the person that we keep in the back, who is not quite so cosmetically perfect, who knows how to deal with a iPhone extraction tool. So it was amazing. It was like getting a waitered table service.
It's pretty amazing. It is. I think they're very smart in how they're handling. But there is a negative. I mean, they're so successful, they have been jammed. And I think that might scare people away. So they need to handle people efficiently. I think this Apple app, this App Store app is...
so long as people go out, I think they've had the same consistent approach since they opened the Apple Store. They want to make sure that if you go into the Apple Store, you have a good experience when you come out.
Right.
So you would think that, the fact that the store is jammed would totally screw up my experience, but they were so good at maintaining that flow that I had the fact that it just seemed busy more than it didn't trouble me. It troubled the staff. And the fact that they were so jammed up didn't affect my experience at all. I think I had an appointment for 3:15, and I was served by 3:05, 3:10, and I was out of there by 3:25. So,
a study from a research firm called GFK says that 84% of current iPhone owners plan to purchase another Apple phone when they replace their cell phone. Very high retention rate. They did 4,500 interviews with iPhone owners all over the world. Actually, smartphone owners all over the world. And iPhone had 84%, Android 60%, BlackBerry 48%. I saw an interesting article today that BlackBerry, I don't know if this is a indicator or not, but BlackBerry is going to start expanding their business. So they have software for managing BlackBerries. They're going to expand that to include iPhone and Android phone. I wonder if RIM is starting to think, maybe this hardware thing isn't working out so well for us. We should focus on what we do best, which is secure enterprise mobile platform. Wouldn't that be weird if they just got out of the phone? I've seen stranger things.
We should focus on what we do best, assigning an emergency action team to bring our servers back online after a worldwide power surge.
Yeah. Oh, my God. All right, we got some rumors. We got lots of rumors. Mark Millian, did you see he wrote we're going to get to those in just a second, but a couple of real quick shorties before we take our next break. Mark Millian, who's been on the show many times, he used to write for the LA Times. He's now at CNN. He has an ebook that is called Letters to Steve, Inside the Email Inbox of Apple's Steve Jobs. $2.99 on the Kindle. It's 67 pages. He says he reviewed more than 100 emails allegedly sent by Jobs. The problem is it's very difficult to, know, including some never-before-published notes that were shared exclusively for the new title, interviews with some of the customers and people that Jobs communicated with. Wow. This is going to become, I think it's a cottage industry going forward. Steve Jobs is cottage industry of books about Steve Jobs. Have you been following? I know you probably have, Andy, because you do a show for 5x5. I listened to John Syracuse's Hypercritical, a couple of episodes, 42 and 43, just panning Isaacson's book about Jobs. I mean, just saying this is basically the fundamental point was Steve picked the wrong guy to write his biography. This guy knew nothing about the technology, knew nothing about Apple, knew nothing about the industry. He was just a business reporter, and so as a result, not only did he make a lot of mistakes, but the book is missing what Syracuse felt it needed, which was a deep analysis of what happened at Apple and what Steve did. Dave Weiner weighed in to agree. What do you think, Andy?
I think the book is great for what it is, which is a book that was written during a biography that was written during the subject's lifetime. It doesn't matter how firmly the word gets out that, hey, you might hear from this Isaacson guy. I've told him that he can have full access to anybody. Feel free to say whatever you want. But that'll still limit what a person says about the subject.
I agree.
especially given, and I hope that I put this delicately, if you know this person is very, very sick and probably will not live to see the publication of this book, do you want to be the person who says, oh, that guy, he was such a dillweed. Right. I can't get over how mean he was. I'm so glad the day I walked out of Apple for good is the best day of my life. Also, you really do need a number of years to find out what the true long-range effects of certain decisions and strategies are, and he was denied that opportunity. Thirdly, you sort of deny people the ability to, if one of the things that Dave Weiner was, and also Dan Gilmore, who is a very, very good journalist and also someone who writes about journalism for a number of different outlets, was complaining that Isaacson was told about a lot of Apple's future plans, but decided not to publish them because he felt that that would be unfair to the company, that he wasn't writing a business book to give Samsung and all their competitors an advanced look at what they were doing.
I believe Isaacson himself admitted that, so I don't think it's
right, exactly.
speculation.
Well, exactly. That's why it got out. So if this book had been published 10 years from now, everything that he had been planning and all the business moves that Steve Jobs had been making would already be moot, and people would now be free to talk about those things from both sides of the fence. So I agree and I disagree with John. I do think that it isn't the definitive biography. It's not on the same level as the biographies of Ben Franklin and Einstein that Isaacson had written before. But I think that at least he has now that library and that database of interviews, so that if 10 years from now he wants to write that more definitive book, or if he just simply wants to donate these interviews to a university library.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
There are 40 interviews that must spend hundreds of hours, and that is the primary source. And I do, this is what I wrote to Dave. I said, Dave, all I say is we should start a campaign to tell Isaacson, please, we beg of you, maybe on your death it's fine, but at some point, please donate these interviews so that future historians have this as a primary resource, along with interviews that, other interviews and so forth. There's a lot of material about Apple. I think the best biographies are yet to be written, of course.
Yeah, that's pretty much par for the course on any historical book. There's so many sets of papers that are locked in vaults by seal of someone's last will and testament, or the seals of their estate, saying that I will tell you exactly what I was up to, what my thought processes were on the day of JFK's assassination, but not until 50 years after I'm dead.
Right, exactly.
So sometimes there are books that serve the mass market, and sometimes there are books that serve history. I don't think this is the book that was designed to serve history, but it's still a very, very good read. It's still the best insight we've gotten into this person that we've known of but not known about for the past 30, 40 years. You agree, Ken?
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of like an airplane book, right? I mean, this is for everybody.
Yeah, if it's a very long flight.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'll be honest, I read very slowly. I'm only about halfway through it because I read before I go to bed, and so I usually fall asleep reading it. But, I mean,
all I can say is Audible.
Read,
Audible, Ken. Audible.
All right, well.
It's a great audiobook. You're not allowed to fall asleep when you're driving.
We're going to... we go in the book very quickly from we're in Steve Jobs' garage to he's meeting with the board in the building. And I kind of wanted to go back and see, did I skip a chapter accidentally? I mean, this is a very quick run through a lot of things that, as Apple geeks or as Mac geeks or as just technology geeks or Silicon Valley geeks, you want a lot more information about, how did this happen? Right. When did they build the building? At what point did they say, the garage is getting a little tight? We don't get that kind of detail, but at the same time, he's covering a ton of stuff, and this is a Christmas, well, not a Christmas release because it came out in October. This is a general consumer release, as Andy said. Right. So there's a lot of really neat stuff about he started in the garage, and here's Pixar, and George Lucas, screwed up when he sold Pixar, and it's a Hollywood tale in a lot of ways, where Hollywood is Silicon Valley.
As Syracuse pointed out, the first few years of Apple was so heavily covered. There are 50 books plus. Michael Malone's excellent book, and on, that I felt like Isaacson skimmed through that as a prelude, and I think you're right. This was written for the general public. So here's the setup, and really you're going to get to the good parts, Ken, are still to come. The kind of behind the scenes on Antenna Gate and some insights. We got a lot of insight into Jobs that I don't think I'd ever read anywhere else. I know Syracuse has probably read more books about Apple than anybody, but I think there was plenty in there to make it worthwhile. And I hope there's more to come. You know, Aaron Sorkin. Andrew's the business writer. Aaron Sorkin, the screenwriter, is considering writing the screenplay for a Steve Jobs movie. Sony apparently courting him. Movie based on the book. Sorkin, of course, wrote The West Wing. He wrote The Social Network. Here's a guy who focuses on facts.
I bet he's really upset that Apple didn't actually build that circular campus building like while Steve Jobs was alive, because that would allow him to do like the entire movie as just one long walk and talk of Steve just walking, talking to underlings that come in and out. They come back to the starting point. They just keep going laps.
That'd be perfect for that.
It's a biopic, though. Please, by the time it's made, he will have built it. He will have seen it built, and it'll be fine.
You could just put him in there. It doesn't matter. We're just, it's a little fictionalized.
I hope that happens. There's a lot of backlash immediately that said Aaron Sorkin's the wrong person to do this. He doesn't understand tech. He doesn't understand business. He understands how to sell tickets, and he writes amazing dialogue.
Great writer. Yeah. He does kind of hate, he hates the internet, though, and he hates technology. It's pretty apparent in all of his writing. Bloggers are always underage, snotty-nosed kids in their jammies in the basement, and all of his TV shows, and even the portrayal of Zuckerberg was, I think, kind of a little mean. But hey, you're right. It'll be a great movie, and it'll be much like this Isaacson book. It may not be the perfect story of what really happened, but
neither was Amadeus, but it was a great movie.
Exactly.
I mean, it's okay to say that it's okay to say that we're just going to do a 2.5-hour movie that's interesting and entertaining, that will be based on fact, but not necessarily the facts. And then when we think about what other tech guy is better suited for 2.5 hours of entertainment. You have so many set pieces that are just purely visual. All you have to do is do an establishing shot of Steve Jobs inside his mansion that looks like he's basically a squatter, and he pulled in like a mattress he found on a curb somewhere, and a really good expensive chair that his grandfather left him when he died. And this guy who controls this huge company surrounded by practically nothing. Then you understand so much about what makes this guy tick. Yeah, you get into these other figures who are like, no, he's got a couple action figures, and he's got a couple comics on the nightstand, and a couple of empty soda cans. Yeah, that's like almost 73% of anybody between the age of 25 and 43 who knows a little bit of Perl.
How much more interesting is this movie going to be than the Social Network? I mean, this is dramatic. And you've got a central character that is operatic in his mood swings and his genius. And I mean, I want to see Steve Jobs the opera.
The problem exactly, you could do that. Zuckerberg's as
rounded corners. You must have rounded corners. I'm sorry.
This is I almost launched into a song that would have gotten us the explicit tag, but
oh, go ahead.
This is crap. I think you all know that this is crap. You're a jerk. Get your stuff. You are gone. How about you defend your system? I don't think you can do what I want the company to do.
And that's the Broadway musical. That's Steve Jobs, the Broadway musical.
How come no one shares my vision?
It should be that too.
I'm writing this down.
This is good. I hope somebody's taking notes.
Bills on the floor for someone else to pick up. I'm sorry, man.
I was going to say it's obvious you've been working on this for quite a while.
No, you don't know Andy.
Really wow.
His best work is just right out of the top of his head.
That's why I got Dr. Andy's magic thinking juice in this junk right here.
Mm-hmm. Steve Jobs exhibit on display at the U.S. Patent Office Museum. This looks like really cool. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office opened an exhibit in its Alexandria, Virginia offices. It's in the atrium of the headquarters. And it's 30 giant iPhone-like display panels, most of which display the front pages of the over 300 patent and trademark filings that bear Steve Jobs' name. I think that is a tribute that Steve would have loved.
It's amazing that it only took them a month and a half to do it. I'm sorry. It's
no
just
kidding.
Stunning to me. I mean, you hear they applied for this patent in 1996, and it was released this past week. And then I hear a month and a half after he dies, they've already got the memorial up, and I'm kind of like, wow, that's so fast.
Don't you guys have something else to do?
No, not at all. I'm amazed. I'm wondering if maybe they could go, if we were able to do that so quickly. Just
The U.S. Patent Office took a break away from its usual mandate of crushing innovation and enhancing open technologies in order to put up a whole bunch of really wicked cool jumbo iPhones. We hope the taxpayers enjoy it.
Let's take a break. Oh, you're in rare form today. Andy Ihnatko is here. He is also the host of a great podcast, audio only, called Andy Ihnatko's Almanac.
The Ihnatko Almanac.
The Ihnatko Almanac on the 5x5 network at 5x5.tv. And I'm not going to talk about you and Marco, but I just hope it all works out.
We're building it. We're rebuilding brick by brick, step by step.
They're in therapy.
We'll get
together.
back to where we once were. we're both willing to work, and that's really all you need.
Yeah. And of course, macOS Ken is here. MacOSKen.com for his daily podcast of tech news. Right there on the web. It's a great podcast. But you got, these are all podcasters here. Bunch of podcasters. We're going to get to our rumor segment. We did one rumor, but there's still plenty more. This is the time of year when the rumors go crazy. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about my Mustang. Ford.com/technology is the place to go to find out more about all the amazing technology Ford is building into its automobiles. I got to tell you, my next vehicle is going to be the all-electric Ford Focus. I cannot wait. It's coming. It's maybe a few months off. But you can take a look at the 2012 Focus right now with the Sync and My Ford Touch and just the things that this can do. You got in the center console, this big, what is it, 8-inch, 7-inch display. You got two screens, too, behind the steering wheel. And you can control everything with your voice. The whole point of all of this is safety first. Hands on the wheel, eyes on the road, but you press the button on the wheel and you can pick a song. We've talked about this before. You can set the cabin temperature, ask for the nearest gas station. But I think it's really important to underscore the GPS. We don't talk about that. It's fantastic in this thing. They've got 40 million businesses built in. So you can ask for something by business, and it will not only have directions to the business and drive you there, it also has the telephone number. You can say, call that business. You can use they have a send to sync feature, which lets you on your desktop use Google Maps or MapQuest to plan a trip. So this is nice if you have multiple stops and you want to do an elaborate trip, maybe over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house. You do it on your desktop, save it to your website, your Sync Traffic Directions and Information Systems account, and then use voice commands in your vehicle to get those to fetch the turn-by-turn directions. They even have a free mobile app for your iPhone, an Android phone, we'll say that lets you get that information on the go. Have traffic conditions sent to your mobile phone and more. If you go to Ford.com/technology, you'll see an overview of all the wonderful technologies they're building into today's 21st century Ford vehicles. They are really the most forward-looking car company. But, the best way to try this, go to your Ford dealer and try that 2012 Ford Focus. You're going to love it. Give it a try today. Drive one today. Ford.com/technology. We thank them so much for supporting MacBreak Weekly. I just saw that Slacker now is part of the AppLink package in because you can talk to your smartphone. So now you got Stitcher, Slacker, Pandora, and OpenBeak. So they're really more and more apps all the time. Before we get to the rumors, one more thing. I saw an iPod Touch ad the other day. It's really interesting to look at Apple's positioning of the Touch. They're going after kids, teenagers, preteens, kids you may not give an iPhone to, but who want those apps, who demand those apps, who would be using Wi-Fi, not 3G, a lot more affordable. They're really focusing on the youth market. This is the first time I can remember Apple doing this. Of course, their iPod ads. Here we go. Want to play? These are, remember, these look like they're 17 or 18, but that means it's aimed at a 14-year-old, 13-year-old. Those are younger kids. What are they saying here? That parents aren't going to buy iPhones for kids this young? I don't know if that's true.
Well, the iPod Touch has always been a really popular solution for parents to buy kids, not only because you delete the phone features, but also because you lose a monthly contract.
It's the last PDA.
Yeah, I'd say so.
They're the last company still selling PDAs. And what a great entry-level drug. Right, to get kids into the iPhone space. I doubt I don't notice in past years you would have seen ads for the iPod and the Nano, but now it's the Touch. That's where we want to. That's the sweet spot, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, because oftentimes parents, if parents get their kids phones that are on a family plan, so they're not really willing to. They don't think it's necessary, and they're not really willing to necessarily buy them a real smartphone as part of the family plan. They'll take the deal where they get X number of phones for $29.99, and they're decent phones, but they're not great phones. So there's a gap there for Apple to exploit, to say that yes, you will get this simple flip phone or this simple touchscreen phone with a camera and a Facebook app that will be your cell phone, but for real apps and for real fun, I think you're going to be turning to the Apple logo.
And go ahead.
Well, you raise an interesting point, actually, in that Piper Jaffray thing that we were talking about earlier, where 11% of kids want Apple stuff. If you break down the list that they're talking about, generic iPod turns up before iPod Touch on the list.
Interesting.
So nobody's saying, I want a Nano or I want a Shuffle or I want, a Classic. They're saying iPod. And then the next thing down is an iPod Touch. So it makes sense that Apple would push them that way because, like you say, get them in while they're young. I mean, start with apps when they're 14, 15, and 16.
I think kids want apps.
Time to get their own smartphone.
I think kids, they want the games. They want to play, the games, the Angry Birds, or I guess kids don't play Angry Birds. They play what is there? There's that flying game all the kids are playing where the birds flying around.
Angry Birds?
No, not Angry. It's not Angry Birds. It's
Tiny Wings.
Tiny Wings. That's the kids love Tiny Wings.
And
there's iMessage. Because of iMessage, they can text. So they're not left out. It's a really interesting way to kind of get them right in there, I think.
Yeah, because why are they going to advertise the Nano to kids? I mean, that doesn't hook anybody in. I mean, it might be a gateway drug, but it's not the same sort of gateway drug or Trojan horse that an iOS device is, because then, hold on to that application forever.
Right.
It is actually time for you to make your own decision about where you're going to go. All your stuff's already here, so don't go anywhere.
All right, rumors.
Okay, I have a bumper.
Go, bumper.
Okay, sorry. I made that.
That's good.
I'm thinking about
Rumor
stuff
has
like
it. The rumor has it there will be 3D iPads. Oh, gag me with a spoon.
They're already, they're pretty thin, but they're already 3D, I think.
Would you buy a 3D? Remember the Nintendo 3DS, the 3D gaming device using lenticular 3D, so you didn't need glasses. You just had to have your head in exactly the right spot. According to Business Insider, Apple decided to nix plans for an Apple iPad 3 with 3D over concerns the device could become a gimmick. No, you think? Yeah. So, I don't know. Is there a market for 3D? You see 3D phones. You see 3D laptops now.
You see them at the Mobile World Congress. You don't see them in the
I do. You know what? There's a number of people who've come in here, and you can tell it's a 3D phone because the camera has two little lenses.
Yeah, but
they hate it. Everybody hates it. But I just saw a TV ad for, was it a Toshiba 3D Toshiba laptop? I know. I can't imagine there's a market for any of this.
Yeah,
I hate 3D, but I'm kind of the 3D naysayer, so I'm the wrong guy to ask.
I believe this is a website entering the enterprise market, saying that what market are we not touching? I know. Well, we don't want to compete with the Retina display iPad rumor market. Let's create a brand new market. Really stupid 3D.
It is a crowded market when you talk about Apple suppliers. This is Arnold Kim and Mac Rumors saying Apple's suppliers are starting to ship 4-inch screens for the next iPhone. According to Asian source Hitachi's Display Limited and Sony Mobile Display Corporation started to ship 4-inch LCDs for the new iOS devices and LCDs for iPad 3s.
Okay, wait a minute. Did the original report say that it was for a 4-inch iPhone, or did it say it was for an iOS device?
Oh.
Because I still have a problem believing in the 4-inch iPhone. I mean, if they're actually shipping them something, then maybe something's coming, but I still have a hard time buying the 4-inch iPhone.
Really?
Not buying it, but buying it. Yeah.
You think they're going to stay with 3.5 inches?
Well, I mean, it's that whole thing that we were talking about the applications, right? I mean, don't you screw up something if you right. I mean, it's, I don't know. I find it hard to believe. I think if people want to,
but Apple is going to
go with the iPad.
I have to tell you, consumers want these big screens. They want 4 inches is still too small. They want 4.3, 4.5, 4.6. They are selling like hotcakes. Those are all the Android phones. You saw that Samsung commercial slamming fans. Did you see that with all the fanboys are in line behind
was
the
a great
bars?
commercial.
I loved it. But they're all looking, they're saying, wow, that's a big screen. And I really do think that the market's moving towards big screens. And is the Retina, I don't know if you could say the Retina display has as many dots, but it's in a little screen. I don't know if that's compelling.
Yeah. Well, I think that Apple's public answer to that question about when they're going to have a larger screen for this, they'll say, well, the feature of having a larger screen is to make it easier to read, and this is already this is already super easy to read because we packed so much definition into this display.
It's not. Take it from a 40-plus-year-old person.
Yeah, but I think that if they make that change, it's mostly going to be because of the fact that so many component manufacturers are making these 4-inch displays, and it might become less expensive for them to simply find an existing display that they really, really like and hook onto that, rather than have to be one of the few companies who has to source a rather odd, what might become someday a rather oddball looking component.
I think they're caught between a rock and a hard place, because I think you're right, Ken, that the developers. It makes a problem for developers if you change I guess you could do a 4-inch display with the same resolution, then it wouldn't matter. It's resolution, not size, that matters.
Okay. See, that's something that I've always had a question about, and I honestly don't know the answer.
From the developer's point of view, it's dots. They don't care about how many. If it's 4 inches worth, as long as it's the same dots, you develop for that resolution.
All right.
But that doesn't.
See, here's the other thing, though. When you say what consumers want is this bigger screen, there's a story out of the UK. It was in the Times online, and I cannot remember which firm it was, but there was some firm that said that Apple sales of smartphones in the UK after the release of the iPhone 4S were something like 42.3% of all smartphones sold in the month of October were iPhones. So you can't say that what people want is bigger screens, because they keep going for more iPhones when there are more iPhones. I have no doubt that people who don't want an iPhone want a larger screen. I don't think all of them do, but some of them do. I don't think the larger screen is what's driving the smartphone space, because you get the iPhone 4S. You get record sales from Verizon and AT&T on the weekend that the iPhone 4S comes out. I don't think people were crossing their fingers hoping it was going to be a 4-inch screen. I think they wanted the next iPhone. So
exactly.
It's not a huge differentiator at this point. And so then it's hard for me to see why Apple would want to change it. Now, Andy's point is an interesting one. If it suddenly becomes cheaper to make a 4-inch screen than a 3.5-inch screen, Tim Cook's a smart guy, and he would want to do something that's going to let him charge $620 for a phone that costs less for him to make. But I don't know. It's hard to see them changing it just because some people want an Android that has a bigger screen, to me.
I don't know. I think people do want bigger screens. I think they're willing to give up bigger screens to get an iPhone.
But yeah, I mean that's true. I mean it's a different sort of metric when you have one manufacturer making one phone, take it or leave it. I don't think that if there's somebody who would much rather have an Android phone because of the larger screen, they were probably not really locked into the idea of getting an iPhone to begin with. I think there are way more advantages from my perspective, the size of the screen is not the reason why I'm using an iPhone over an Android device. I do think that Apple should at least look at it, because I think that there's a larger screen is a nice sort of happy medium between a device that is rather emphatically a phone and a device that is sort of a hybrid between a tablet and a phone. A larger screen is nicer for reading, obviously. It means that you can actually use it to take handwritten notes. And video, but that's not a slam dunk. You still have to really you still have to really articulate that feature well to take advantage of a larger screen. So it's a difference between on Android you really can seek out and purchase exactly the device you want, and that's why there's so much room for someone to say, well, if people are buying 4-inch screens, we're going to build the device with a 4.5-inch screen. Well, now they're building a 4.5-inch screen. We'll build one with a 5-inch screen and see how big we can make it before someone says, oh my God, you people are idiots. You don't understand that the pocket is about this size, and now you're making me carry a purse for my phone.
Well, I agree. You can get too big, but the other thing is I think that Apple could split the difference by making a bigger screen with the same resolution. Then you don't fragment the market, but you satisfy this need for a bigger screen. But remember, the iPhone is 640 or 960 by 640. This new Galaxy Nexus is 1280 by 720. I mean, we're talking about a significant amount of more real estate. And I think as phones become kind of our primary computing platform, more and more, primary in the sense that we use it more than we use anything else, I think you're going to want more real estate, aren't you?
If it means, I don't think it's so much the ability to actually watch HD movies in HD resolution on your phone. I think it really is a case of being able to use a sans serif font and actually be able to see the serifs. That if you can get a foreign screen in which you have something that looks more like a printed page and not more like an accommodation of trying to get as good a details for this web page or this book content or this magazine content as you can on a small device, then I think that the advantages of a larger display become apparent. I really don't think it's about user interface. I really don't think it's about video or games. I really do think it's about the simple things of having a user interface that was designed, at least with the potential of looking pretty. If you had Android like 2.1, you can add more pixels, and now you're basically adding more garbage to the vacant lot next to your house. It's more, it's not better, it's just more.
Right.
See, looking at changing the phone to me, though, I mean, aside from changing the form factor that we already have, looking at changing the phone to me is going the wrong direction. And I think it would be going the wrong direction as far as Apple is concerned, too. Not that I'm there, not that I know for certain, but what they're building is an ecosystem. And so to say, well, people want bigger phones is to say, well, we are actually concentrating on this device rather than concentrating on the whole. Do you see what I mean? I mean, I think the better case for Apple is, okay, how do we get, I mean, it's the whole iCloud thing. It's the whole ecosystem thing. It's the whole AirPlay thing. It's the whole making everything play nice together. If I'm trying to find a way to make my phone a better way for people to do everything that they want to do, well, then I'm kind of losing because I'm not figuring out how I'm going to push it to the Mac, how I'm going to push it to the iPad, how I'm going to push it to the television, how I'm going to push it to whatever the thing is that I'm going to come out with in the next couple of years that nobody even knows about yet except for Walter Isaacson, but he won't tell anybody, damn it.
Well, I do think that Apple's actually going to have a little bit of a problem because I think they are primarily, thanks to Steve, a hardware company, and the cloud is baffling them to date. Mobile Me was a horrendous experience, and I'm not impressed with iCloud yet.
Yeah, but we're not done.
We're not done, but they haven't shown a mastery of this space in the way that they've shown a mastery of the hardware space. And I think that could be a problem going forward, to be honest, as the cloud becomes important. They do. Apparently, they are trying to hire some cloud executives. We had a story here. Apple looking for more senior executives to help run iCloud, says Cult of Mac. I think that. Don't you think iCloud is right now like what?
I think there are parts of it that work really well, and parts. I think most of the difficulties, at least I've been having with iCloud, are just ones of simple perception, where they're not really huge problems with the service itself, but it wasn't working the way that I assumed it would work, or the way that the interface kind of hinted at me that it would work. It's not a problem. Most of the problems are things that could have been solved with a really good 5-minute video on Apple.com that said that would automatically load up and say, okay, welcome to iCloud. Here's what you can expect, and here's what it's supposed to do. Here's what this is not. So don't try to expect that it's going to be unlimited document syncing on all devices. That said, there were a whole bunch of glitches that I'm still trying to figure out. iTunes Match is a really good feature, but I still can't figure out why a lot of my smart playlists aren't coming through the way that they should. All I know is that before I enabled iCloud for iTunes Match, I had a smart playlist for my podcast that would keep that would sync my podcast onto my iPhone in chronological order, so that the most recent podcast was always at the top. Now it sort of like is in sort of a weird, unpredictable order, and sometimes an ancient as hell podcast will wind up in that list. So the fact that the moment that you take something that worked for me and makes it not work anymore is when you start wondering, oh, Apple, did you really think this one through?
Yeah. Here's what I feel like, and I'm seeing this, saying this as someone as an outsider. Admittedly, I love Apple and I use all the Apple products, but I think I'm somewhat of an outsider. And I see the world moving towards bigger screen phones. I see the world moving towards social. I see the world moving towards cloud. And I see Apple, it feels to me, is maybe there's a big risk anyway that Apple is going to be left a little bit behind here. That Apple is not moving with the rest of the world. That Apple is going to become once again a backwater. Remember, it was a backwater. In fact, that's one of the reasons we liked it. Was Macintosh was kind of the small guy, and I'm worried that may be what's happening here too. You may say this is perfect. This is a perfect object, but it's the last small phone. I got to tell you, no premium phone has a screen this small anymore.
But that's okay. I mean, Apple's never really been let themselves be dictated what other people are going to do.
Maybe they should. Maybe they're a boutique again.
Oh, I wouldn't call it that. Yeah, they've been selling a lot more than any boutique I've ever visited.
Yeah, I guess so.
The fact that people are still running towards this device and still selling out 2 or 3 months after it's been released says that Apple's still making a product that's compelling, and that the people who are buying an iPhone don't see the smaller screen as a handicap of any kind. The question is, if that data actually were to start to surface, would Apple really react to it? The first year that we get full results on how fast the Kindle Fire is selling, is that going to tell Apple maybe we should look into creating a 7-inch version of the iPad, find a way to solve that problem and add a third screen resolution to iOS developers? Or do they simply say, nope, we decided we decided a long time ago we're not going to do 7 inches. We tried 7 inches. 7 inches don't work. Right. The 10 or 12 million people who've been buying Fires and really like them, they're wrong. We're right. Shut up. I can't hear you.
Well, is 7 inches what's going to drive the Fire, though, or is it $200? I mean, there was somebody, I can't remember who, but one of the financial analysts says what we think Apple's going to do, which is, code for, what I think Apple should do. One of the analysts said this week that they think what Apple's going to do, they're going to introduce the iPad 3, and then they're going to keep the iPad 2 out there at a lower price, sort of like they've done with the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 4S and the iPhone 3G and, all that stuff. The other 3GS, rather. The only problem is there's a subsidy tied to all of those, so Apple can keep making the one that costs less because they're still getting, money from Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, Etisalat out of Saudi Arabia, from a bunch of other places. But, is the question, is 7 inches the question for the Fire, or is it the lower price for the Fire?
Well, it doesn't have to be either or. I think you're right, lower price is driving it, but I have to say I like 7. I've always liked 7 inches. Yeah, I like that size.
That's weird because you're saying bigger screens for TVs. For phones.
Well, but there's
so you want a smaller. It's
iPad, not just bigger everywhere. I think I like 7 inches because it's easy to hold, easy to type on, easy to put in my pocket, and I get as much done on that as I get on a larger iPad with because the iPad resolution is frankly not very high. And then this, I'd like to see this a little bigger. That doesn't. I don't think those are inconsistent. But anyway, I think interesting. I think Apple could start feeling quaint. There's a risk of that.
Okay.
I'm just raising the issue. You don't have to agree with me.
It's just. There's the whole. I hate when I get like this because it sounds like I can't possibly conceive of anything else doing well. I think there's a lot of other stuff that can do well. It's the ecosystem thing that really sells out at this point.
I agree, but if the ecosystem doesn't include social and the cloud, the ecosystem may fall by the wayside. Spotify may replace iTunes.
I'd be okay with that, actually.
So would I. Yes.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Well, guess what?
You have to pay every month for that, and a lot of people don't want to pay every month for that.
But you pay, if you buy a CD a month, you're paying the same amount.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's why I love Spotify. I loved Rhapsody before it. Spotify has the neat social side of it, which is what made me switch over to Spotify. But
that's what I'm saying, is the ecosystem isn't a lock because you're doing
the ecosystem
something.
Is a lock, though, as far as on hardware, right? Spotify's not selling me a phone. If Spotify gets into phones, I think it would be a mistake, first of all. But Apple is still a hardware company with services that sort of tie all of the hardware together, right?
As long as those services keep up. But if you can't do cloud and you can't do social, and you are stuck in the idea of selling songs instead of renting them, maybe you aren't keeping up. Maybe you've got an ecosystem, but it's a quaint ecosystem.
See, I'm not sure. It feels to me though like you're putting a separate requirement on Apple's hardware ecosystem at that point. They do have they do have an easy way to make all of this stuff talk, right? But you say if they can't do cloud and they can't do social and they're done. Well, what other hardware manufacturer is doing both cloud and social on their own? They're making those things accessible, and then the question is, how does it talk to everything else that you have?
I'm just saying that you don't have the lock-in anymore into that ecosystem. If people say, well, I love Apple hardware, but I'm going to use Google Docs and Spotify, then your lock-in isn't a lock-in.
Okay. That's interesting.
That's an interesting comment when you talk about the possibility of Spotify supplanting iTunes Store. To me, Spotify is the ultimate lock-in. You're into all your playlists, all your content is really being held hostage to your monthly subscription fee. The reason why I buy almost all of the tracks that I like is because I like the fact that once I own it in a non-DRM format. I can play it through my Roku box, I can play it through my Apple TV, I can play it through an Android device. I'm not limited to the devices that Spotify has chosen to support. Neither am I limited to the interfaces and the way that the Spotify app decides to handle music and handle playlists. So I do think that Apple should at least look into the idea of I'm sorry. I really wish that Apple would at least experiment with the idea of having some sort of subscription component, because if they were to simply say, look, for $6 we will give you access to 100 tracks full bore for free. When you add new tracks to this locker, the oldest 6 or the oldest 7 drop out. At least give you a way to sort of hold on to full length, full quality tracks that you don't necessarily own.
Well, then you're agreeing with me, because I guess what I'm really saying is that Apple has the risk of running the risk of being locked into the book of Jobs. That 3.5-inch screens, you may not rent music, you must buy music. That Ping is the ultimate social music network. That iCloud really is the best way to do cloud computing. That if you get locked into the book of Jobs and you don't look at what is happening and what people want, there's a risk of that's what quaint means to me. It means being trapped.
Exactly. Well, in all things in life, it's incredibly corrosive to get seduced by dogma. When you're doing things only because you've been taught that this is a basic principle and that you don't dare swerve away from this. Every day, every week, every month, and every year, you have to look at the reasons why you do things and see if those reasons still hold up. A good decision from 2 years ago, good decision from 2 weeks ago, might not still be a new good decision given the new information you have at hand.
Apple showing a little bit of its historic hardball, pulling out from Samsung and moving its business to Sharp in Japan. Samsung, of course, is in a bitter lawsuit with Apple over at what Apple claims is stealing the iPhone's trade dress and so forth, and the iPad's trade dress. Sharp is now a big partner. They're shifting production to Sharp in Japan, away from the Korean Samsung, and may, according to Piper Jaffray, Jeffries and Company. I got confused. It's Peter Mizek writing at Jeffries. May actually start producing a television with screens from Sharp as early as the middle of 2012. Sharp is a big player in LCD TVs, as is Samsung. Be interesting to see. We've talked a lot. I'm not going to talk any more about the Apple TV. We talked enough about that. We'll just have to wait and see.
Can I ask Andy one question really quickly?
Yes.
You still thinking no TV?
I'm thinking that's going to be the Apple 3D TV. That's another thing they solved. They fixed the problem of 3D television.
It's 4D.
Are they really?
It's one better.
That's excellent. Does it come with a?
I'm quaint. I like 2D. I weigh in on the quaint side on that one. 2D.
See, every time you say that, I want to send you an eye patch. I think that would be funny.
I don't need an eye patch, actually, because I only use one eye, which is one. Many would say that's why I don't like 3D, because I don't really see it I can see it. I have to.
I think Ken is just saying, and I agree with him, that you would look really, really sexy with an eye patch.
I have an eye patch. I'll go get it.
Give you that sort of Jack Sparrow sort of. Yeah. At least think about it.
They're selling Apple's founding contract, the contract that I guess created the corporation Apple Computer at auction. It's expected to bring. How much would you pay for the contract signed by the Steves? Who else is on this? It's a 3-page document signed by the Steves and Ronald Wayne. Ron Wayne, the guy who after a week later, after said, I don't want to do this, is being sold at auction by Sotheby's. They expect $150,000. There it is. Apple Computer Company Partnership Agreement, to whom it may concern. Isn't that April 2nd, 1976? I think Ron Wayne wrote this, as I remember.
I think that BlackBerry is going to RIM is going to be a really big bidder, because I think that somewhere in that company, someone thinks that if we simply set it on fire at a crossroads, then bury it, it will cause the company to not have ever existed. So
actually,
on that basis, it's got to be worth a couple.
This includes the amendment that says, as of the date of this amendment, Wayne shall hereinafter cease to function in status of partner in the aforementioned agreement, and all obligations, responsibilities, agreements, and understandings of the agreement of April 1st, 1976 are herewith terminated. This is
Well, that's a separate filing.
it's a
that
separate
went
one.
along.
Yeah, they're going to have both
Yeah.
of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it has to go for about as much as a set of handwritten Beatles lyrics.
Ooh.
I mean, I mean that I think that it would be somewhere within the high low of that range. Maybe not up there with Let It Be, but definitely in the more than Dig a Pony, I think.
I think it was at the Rock and Roll Hall of. It's either the Experience Music Project or Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The handwritten lyrics to John Lennon's "In My Life." There are places I remember. That I would give everything. That's just an amazing document. But you know, the one I really want is also at auction. Is Houston? We have a problem. Was it Apollo 8?
Apollo 13.
13. That's right. 13, where they had the oxygen leak and they might have been stranded, and the paper checklist, which was typewritten. That's how long ago this was. That the astronauts used to, was it Jim Lovell? I can't remember. Boy, my memory's fading. To solve the problem, including his handwritten calculations on how much oxygen they had and everything, that's available too. That would be something to have. Anyway, let us take a break, and when we come back, our picks of the week and our tips of the week. Andy usually does an Mac OS tip, a Lion tip. Would you like to do an iOS tip, Mr. Ken Ray, or we can just pass on that?
I may have to pass on that. I'm sorry.
And we do have picks coming up, but first, my friends, I'd like to tell you a little story about this studio. You know, when we first moved in here, suddenly we're a business, right? I mean, we were in the cottage. I got away with making my employees use their smartphones for their business phones. We had one line and one phone. I think it was a cordless, so you could go upstairs with it. And then we came here, and people were saying, well, what's the phone system going to be? And I said, we need a phone system? And then I started thinking about this, and I thought, God, this is very 20th century to have, a PBX in the basement and go to AT&T and pay all that money and have, extensions and all of this stuff. I said, there's got to be a more modern way to do this. Fortunately, our great IT guy, who I just saw wandering through here, Russell Tammany, said, well, you know what we've used for many of my setups in my clients is Ring Central. And I said, Ring Central, what's that? He said, well, Ring Central is basically a virtual PBX with no startup costs, no PBX machine in the basement. It's affordable, easy to set up. It is, too. You just plug in the phone. You have a phone. In fact, we've got a Polycom conferencing system. We've got phones in our offices with multi-lines, just like a real business, but you get so much more than you would with an old-fashioned PBX system. You get fax in your inbox. I can have calls transferred. You call the business line. I've got an extension. That extension can ring my smartphone as well as my phone at my desk. It's the #1 cloud phone system for business. We are now using them and couldn't be happier. And I want you to give them a try. In fact, you can have a 30-day risk-free trial. It's that simple because it's all managed. It's software is, it's in the cloud there. Ringcentral.com or call 800-800-4070. 800-800-4070. You want to hear our Ring Central system? Call our 800 number, 800-605-TWIT. And you'll hear me, and I give you the tree, you hear the music. It's really cool. It's really, and it was so easy to set up. Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Ring Central. And find out more at ringcentral.com or call 800-800-4070 to find out more today. Andy, you're lying. And now our phones are probably ringing off the hook. I should not have done that.
Oh, boy.
That's all right. Don't answer the phone. It's just our audience. No, I forgot there's somebody at the front desk who probably is going to pick up and pick up and pick up. And no. Don't answer the phone.
That's poor Brian.
Or at least if you answer the phone saying, hi, Twitch Studios, you know the count and the amount? Just keep hanging up until...
That is an oldie but goodie. I always wanted to do that. I was thinking Martin Sargent could do a Dialing for Dollars. We should do a Dialing for Dollars show here on Twit. That would be so much fun. Andy, you're a Lion tip.
Line tip. Well, there used to be this semi-complicated but really cool hack you could do so that if you wanted your login screen to say something other than what Apple pre-programmed it to do, like something where type in the wrong password and the missiles launch at 2 p.m. Or in a more practical sense, hi, my name's Andy Ihnatko. Here's my email address. This is my notebook. If it turns up someplace, please email me and I will see to it that you will be properly compensated and rewarded for returning this to me instead of just trading it for half a gram of crack or whatever you do with laptops that get
Whatever it is
stolen out
you
of hotel
do.
rooms. But with Lion, Apple actually added a new twist. If you go into the security and privacy settings panel, and click on General, you actually have the ability to click a checkbox and define what message is going to be shown on your lock screen. So every time you log in or every time that the machine goes to sleep and then asks for a password before waking up again, you can have it say, "This is Andy Ihnatko's." But this is, by all means, if you want your notebook returned to me personally, again, I did turn on a chance to buy an 11-inch Air. So if you'd like to have it mailed to me personally, so I could use it if it gets stolen or lost, by all means, this is Andy Ihnatko's 11-inch Air. By all means, email him for his address and send it back to him that way, or anything else you want to do to just sort of identify your very generic looking MacBook Air or MacBook Pro, to identify it from any other machine that might be in the airport security line or in the office. Very simple. You just click, it goes. It couldn't be easier. No hacks, no tricks, no nothing. And I believe that's brand new for Lion too.
I like that. Now I have given out our number again.
Remember, you don't get the prize package unless you also know the phrase that pays.
What is the phrase that pays?
And can repeat all 7 all killer no filler songs that were played at 7 minutes past every hour for the past week.
You've listened to too much radio, Andy. I was gonna make an iOS tip and pick with iTether. Did you see this? For about 5 minutes, you could buy this app.
Right.
A tethering app that was in the App Store. And, of course, here's the article from Cult of Mac. Quick, get it before Apple finds out. And it literally was gone in minutes. It was a $15 app that bypassed all of the wireless companies, stuff, and would let you tether your iPhone to your laptop and
How
use
did that get approved?
Yeah, exactly.
How did that get approved? I mean, there was a flashlight app that you had to like do an incantation and like switch through 3 different screens, and eventually you could get tethering. And Apple pulled that.
Can you believe it? And
How did this?
I don't know. And some people in the chat room got it. Web1340 says it works. It doesn't work anymore because it's gone. And you should remember that when you see this kind of thing, that I believe, maybe not, but I believe ultimately that the wireless companies can tell you're doing this and will punish you, if not make you pay. So
And they'll send you one of those emails that says, "Hey, you're using an awful lot of data. Tell you what we're going to do."
Well, they can see that you're using a desktop browser. They can see that you're. I mean, it's not invisible, the fact that you are using your smartphone as to tether.
Right. How did that get through?
It's a very good question. Because actually it is a germane question, because I think people have this notion that, well, because Apple vets every application, we can be sure there's no malware. They may vet it, but I don't know how much attention they're paying. If this got through, I don't know, why wouldn't malware get through? If Tether can get through, an app named Tether.
Oh, what does it do? Don't worry, it's fine. Just put it through.
It's fine. Just look. Is the color scheme good? How does that icon look? Put it on.
If they start writing about it a lot, we'll go back and check and see if it should actually be doing what it's doing.
Well, that's, of course, how they found out. All the articles about it. Let us get a pick of the week. Ken, did you prepare one for us, sir?
I did. And I have to say, this is one that I wasn't nearly as into when I first found it. Last year at Macworld, or this year at Macworld, very early this year at Macworld, there was a company there called Zoogu. Zoogue.
Zoogu.
And they were giving out to people to try them out and check them out and see what they thought, these iPad cases. Now, before I show it to you, let me say, it's not the prettiest iPad case in the world. I'm going to say that up front. If you go and you look at the website and you think it looks not as pretty as you might want it to be, okay. So here's what it looks like. Okay. And I can't.
It's hideous.
I'm too close. Well, it's not. No, here's the deal. Okay,
That's ugly, Ken.
Here's the thing. When the iPad 2 came out, I decided I was going to get a smart cover, because we were all getting smart covers because they're cool, right? And they look cool. And so I did that. And then my girlfriend got my first generation iPad, and she got the Zoogu case. And the thing is, she does not like the looks of the Zoogu case. And so she just ordered something else. I don't know what it's called. And it looks a little bit more sleek. But here's the thing. A week after getting that, it doesn't sit quite as well as she wants it to. It's not quite it doesn't do everything that she wants it to exactly. In the meantime, now that my Zoogu case was free again, I put it back in my iPad 2. I put my iPad 2 in it. Now, it's a little loose in there because this one was made for the iPad, not for the iPad 2. But just the way it's made, it sits. I mean, they're relying on the miracle of Velcro.
I was going to say, is that a magnet? No, it's a Velcro.
No, it's Velcro. But it works beautifully. I can set it at any angle I want to. If the surface that I'm setting it on is a little bit slanted, that's okay because I can really set it at any angle rather than having, the 3 positions that you can do with the smart cover or the 5 or 6 little nibs that you can set it in the case that my girlfriend just bought. And then it's also got the strap on the back so that you can put it, if you're driving and the kids are in the back seat and you want them to watch something, there's that right there. It's that. I mean, it's just a perfectly utilitarian thing.
I like it.
A little bit thick, yes. Does it look quite as cool as you want it to? No, it's not. It's not, Gucci or Versace or whatever. But it works in such a great way. It's almost like I got a new case now that I got my old my old iPad case back. So that's it. Zugo. And the one on here says smart case with a K. Smart case. I love it. It's making my iPad more useful again, for like if I've got a recipe
I have to say,
in my kitchen or stuff like that. It's
my
not the prettiest thing you'll ever see, but it's just incredibly functional. I love it.
I bought the smart cover as everybody did when the iPad 2 came out, and I've dropped the iPad now 3 times, and it's so dinged up because the smart cover is not a case, and I feel like I should have a case for this thing.
The smart cover is cool. It's a neat trick, but after a while, yeah, you kind of want something that maybe
you lose the smart cover though if you use the Zugo, right?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, they make a smart cover back, but it doesn't have all that tilt stuff.
Right, that's basically just to protect the back of your iPad if you're using a smart cover.
Right.
Which is a different thing. I mean, that's a cool thing, but it's a different thing.
If I had this, I wouldn't have a dinged up iPad. But I'm figuring all I have to do is get it through till next, say, March, and then I'll have an iPad 3, so who cares? Andy Ihnatko, your pick of the week.
My pick of the week is a free or pay, depending on how much money you want to spend, utility for all of your devices, desktop, mobile, desktop, laptop, mobile. That is, it will track your device if it gets lost or stolen. It's called Prey. You can download it from preyproject.com. And there are versions that are available for Mac, PC, iOS, Android, even Ubuntu. Now, you've heard of a whole bunch of these different services. Usually when someone's report of someone buying their stolen laptop or stealing their laptop goes viral, and God help, if there's anything to discourage you beyond like good moral turpitude to never, ever, ever steal someone's laptop, the idea that someone will make fun of you on Tumblr by posting pictures of your stupid, like, T-shirted face staring into a camera, and like all the pictures you posted on Facebook to private to share with your girlfriend or boyfriend are now being shared with the entire world. That's like the curse of, how about if I give you this thing back and give you $8,000 and hope that you'll take down this blog so I don't have a blog of what I look like when I'm like alone in my room losing a notebook. The difference between Prey and the others is that Prey is an open source community based project.
Oh, interesting.
So that you can actually download it, install it, and use it for free.
Wow.
A lot of the basic mechanisms are the same. If you realize that your laptop's been stolen or it's missing from a web browser or from any other device, you can simply activate it. The Prey software that's installed on the device will occasionally checks in and say, "Oh, by the way, have I been reported as missing or stolen?" I am. Okay, it's time for me to start sending reports on exactly where I am and what the user is doing, and screenshots of the desktop and pictures from the web camera. To the user. The difference, though, is that if you get it for free, you get a maximum of there are things you can't do. You get a maximum of 10 reports are retained at any given moment. So if it's set to create a snapshot at any given moment, the 10th when it takes a 10th one, the next oldest one goes into the land of ghosts and winds and is never seen again. If you pay up for personal use, about $5 a month, you get 100 of those. And also, instead of it sending those reports on a fixed routine basis, you can actually also just on demand say, "Oh, I think that this guy is actually like in a hotel room right now with it. Let's get a screenshot. Let's get capture data. Let's get all the sort of stuff that I can send to a cop has asked, where is it right now? I can actually do a snapshot right now and get that sort of stuff." On the iOS side, it's kind of the question is going to be, I have Find My iPhone. Why would I actually need
Right.
this? It's not quite as important. But the fact that it's always checking in on an active basis without you having to actually babysit things is a big plus. Also, it also has a snapshot feature using the front-facing camera, using a pretty cool little trick. The front-facing camera can only be taken over by the frontmost app at any given time, whereas on the desktop, any app in the background can activate the camera, take a picture without the person really knowing it. So what it does is it actually sends sort of a fake SMS that sort of gets the person to take out the iPhone and hold it up to their face to read the SMS, and that's when the guy's picture gets taken. It gets sent to you. But it's a really cool total solution for everything. Now, my big questions whenever I look at these services is, now, you're telling me that I should voluntarily install a keylogger and like a Snoop and a remote access app. Basically, I'm volunteering to infect my system with what would be described as malware if I were installing this without my knowledge. Prey has a nice answer to the question of why should I trust these guys, in that all of the code is open source. Anybody can investigate it and take a look at it and to see what it's actually doing, which not only hopefully will cause them to not actually slip things in there that you don't know about, but also if there's a weakness or a vulnerability that other people can exploit. Like if someone decides, oh, geez, I think they're using nailtheperp.com anti-theft software, and nailtheperp.com's theft software has a bug in it that will allow anybody to hijack this device and get screenshots off of it. Hopefully, with that kind of openness with Prey, that sort of bug will not exist. And if it ever did exist, it would be revealed pretty quickly. And if you're that worried about it, you can actually take the source code and build your own copy of Prey from source, instead of trusting the binaries that are there to be downloaded. So also the price is right. If you're in sort of position where you're often worried about losing things or things getting stolen, if you're afraid of spending any money per month, this will cost you absolutely nothing per month to get this going. It'll work with everything that you've got going. And if you actually want to enable the premium services, it's only $5 a month. Plus you get a discount if you decide to buy 1 year's worth of service at any given shot.
This is really cool.
Yeah. I was pretty impressed with it. Also, yeah. I did ask. I had to do the paranoid. Okay, now have you heard about Prey? And do you know if it's just a cover for some sort of Eastern syndicate that's just trying to get Amazon.com sign-in information? And it actually has a pretty good reputation. I haven't been able to turn up anybody who has anything suspicious to say about it. That said, realize that you are volunteering to install potentially a keylogger and a snooper and that sort of stuff in the background. It doesn't take up much system resources, but realize that you're trading one potential hazard for another. If your machine does get lost or stolen, you will have this extra tool to recover it. However, you're also introducing a possible point of vulnerability. And this is the reason why that I have a piece of tape over my webcam where I'm not using it. Or at least on my Windows machines, I do. Right.
Very interesting. Prey, P-R-E-Y, project.com.
PreyProject.com.
Right. I'm going to try that. There's Orbicule has a solution and so forth, paid commercial solution. But you're right. If you're worried about this, the best thing is to get open source software, because presumably you can vet whether it's doing anything that you don't like. And you can put it on Android stuff too, so you can put it on all your devices if you want.
Yeah. Since it's open source, it's been ported to just about anything. Yeah. I will be very curious if we get a whole bunch of emails saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're recommending Prey. It's not an East Coast syndicate; it's a West Coast crime syndicate that's using it."
I don't think so. Ken Ray is at macosken.com. Listen to his show every single day, except weekends, right?
Every single day except weekends. Yes.
Yeah. Somebody has to take some time off sometime at macosken.com. And you should also follow him on Twitter, as you see, at macosken. Thank you so much for being here. It's always great to talk to you, Ken, and get your insights into all of this.
Thanks, Leo. I appreciate it.
And Andy Ihnatko is at the Chicago Sun-Times, where he is a scribble, Mr. Ihnatko. He also writes at his website, Celestial Waste of Bandwidth, cwob.com. Thank you all for being here. We do this show every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC at twit.tv. It is my birthday, so they're now going to humiliate me. You're probably wondering why I have balloons growing out of my head. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Thank you, everybody. Now get back to work. Break time is over. Get back to work. I told you. Thank you very much. Look, I'm fifth. Either I'm 5 twice. Thank you. Don't sing happy birthday. We'll have to pay AOL money. Go ahead. You can keep going. We just won't release this. The Beatles are already in us for millions. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yay.
Spanking machine.
Yeah, the spanking machine awaits. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time on MacBreak Weekly.